Welcome to my little garden winter update. Thought I'd just take this time to update you guys on the greenhouse, the power shed, and pretty much that'll be it, because some of these things like the grill, the forge, it's still kind of in construction. I've got a lot of video material on that, and I was going to concentrate on that after the snows melt. This big tree here lost a limb, and when that limb came down, it took out all of the branches on this side. Now, the power shed was originally shaded by some of the limbs from that maple tree. So now all of this is open and it's all available for growing. The way the sun comes in, the sun, there it is right there, the sun never gets above that tree line, or it just gets slightly above that tree line. So most of the year, all of that side of the yard is under shade, where this side, the sun goes right over to that stone wall. So all of this space I can use for growing. The power shed is made out of scrap wood. The door came from my old barn, a house my family had lived in for nearly 50 years. The way I laid out the roof line, so I can put solar panels and a storm window as part of the roof on one side. And then I used Ondura roofing material for the roof. The tool shed, which was the old castle of the swing set, I just used the standard sheeting, and as you can see, it's fallen off, and bees nest up underneath there. I've got to take all that apart and put it all back together. I'm going to do something similar to what I did here. On this side, I cut the Endura up into strips and laid it out as normal roofing material. This also allowed me to use a shorter nail, a shorter screw, I mean. Now, the way Endura is normally attached to a roof, it's screwed through the top, through the peak here, and it's a long screw that goes through. Now, by laying it like this, I can use shorter screws screwed through the valley. Now, normally, if you were to screw it through the valley on the sheets, it would leak through that valley screw. This method, I could use a shorter screw, and I can save a little bit of money on the fasteners, and it's not going to leak because each layer overlaps the previous layer screw. Now, the windows of the power shed came from my old house. I think these may have been basement windows originally. The solar panel is 100 watts. It was, I can't remember the manufacturer or where I got it, but it was a kit, panel plus a PWM solar charge converter. I've left room for more panels, and I can put panels across the top of the tool shed, and I can also put them across the peak of the greenhouse. Now, those speakers, it's part of the stereo system. I'll show you in a minute. I've got stereo on this side, I've got stereo on the other side. These speakers came out of an old high school. They were scrapped, they didn't cost anything, so I just use them. They're weatherproof. They don't sound all that great, but as long as I don't turn them up too loud, they're okay. Coming into the greenhouse, I still need to pour a footing stone. As you can see, it's getting kind of muddy. The temperature went up to about 41 and everything's melting. I did pour a half concrete floor. It's a wet concrete floor. I need to put in a French drain on this side. I'm getting too much water coming in. I did sink the greenhouse down about 6 inches below grade, so I could get more headroom in here. This thing's 4.5 feet wide by about 7.5 feet long, with a 6.5 foot headroom. I'm 6'3", so it's beautiful. Built this little drop-down bench that it's on wire hangers. Sorry for the contrast. There. This is a little homemade power switch for the workbench lights. Also put a couple other homemade light switches for an outside light and inside lights, all LED, low voltage. As I said, it's a PWM converter. It's actually a rose, solar converter. As you can see, I have 100% power. I'm drawing 0.3 amps and 10 degrees centigrade. I get 0 errors, and its batteries are right now at about 14 volts. I am getting some charge from that hazy sun. This is the Spartan switcher. This switches power from the inverter and the grid power I've got coming in from the house. What I did is I ran 2 conduits under this foundation, underground, and then into the house. One for power and one for data and audio. I run an audio line out from my television, my cable box, so I can listen to the news out here through the stereo system. The data, I did run Cat 5 out here, and I will be extending my my network out to this area as well. A little bit more about the charger. Now I've got the solar charge converter going into a 12 volt, I don't know, breaker box. No, not breaker box, fuse box. And then from there, this is on a 25 amp circuit. And from there, it flows down into the batteries. Now that particular battery is a 30-year-old deep cycle marine battery that I desulfated using a mixture of baking soda, something I found online. Got a 20 amp, is that 20? That's 20. 20. I got a 25 amp breaker on the positive side, and what else? Not much else there. I've been having problems with inverters. I've burned out about 3 of them. As near as I can figure, I'm getting power spikes from the PWM solar charge converter. So I got to put an MPPT charger in here, or maybe I'll just go with a Jackery system. And once I get the pavilion shed for the grill built, I might move this system over there, because all this system's doing right now is supplying lights. It's the switcher, the Spartan switcher, is just there. I've got it set up in such a way that the 2 systems are independent of each other, so I've got grid power coming in. Really don't even need the switcher, since I don't have the inverter running. But if I were to get something like a Jackery, which has a built-in charge converter and an inverter and a battery, then I can just plug that into the switcher and switch between battery and grid power as necessary. The timer. This particular line runs down to a little lighthouse I have at the bottom of my property. A little stone lighthouse my dad and I built at the old house. The new owners of the old house were doing a remodel, and they asked if I wanted the lighthouse, and with their assistance, I got it back here and into place and all wired up. This is where I also store the screen door to the tool shed. Right now I've got a winter door on it. It's thermal pane door I picked up at a little antique store in Antrim, New Hampshire. And I paid maybe 20 bucks for it. You could not beat it. I brought that thing back home in my Prius, which is something to see. Okay. Now, as in the power shed, I've got a couple of homemade light switches here for the greenhouse, and up here in the overhead. Now, the dimensions for this place, it's 3.5 feet wide by about 4.5 feet long, with a headroom of 8.5 feet. Plenty of storage up in the overhead. Now, this is the main beam to the swing set. Now, I didn't want to cut it. It would have been a waste of wood, and also been a pain in the butt to cut. So I just ran it through the wall of the tower. This was the play tower originally, and fastened it over here into this wall. It makes a good structural beam, and it ties the two structures together. Now I only had 5 thermal panes available, so one of the panes became the rear wall of the tool shed. These are magnetic strip vapor barriers. Now, I bought 2 of these a couple of years ago. I put one down here, I put one in the kitchen. I replaced the one in the kitchen with a better brand, a more of a thermal barrier than just a plastic screen. And I moved the one in the kitchen down here to create an airlock. Entering the greenhouse, this year what I did is I added this garden cart. Some old family friends were moving. They were getting rid of a bunch of equipment. They gave me this garden cart. It is a beauty. Another friend was getting rid of the balance beam, so I used the legs from the balance beam, which just fit perfectly within the beds to hold the garden cart in place. It does kind of limit me. I really have trouble reaching around the garden cart, so next year, probably going to take this out and build something in this area that will better suit the green space. But why wait? Last night, I built this rig where that old shelf was. This is part of a seed starter that my dad and I have used over the years for starting our seeds. And there's plenty of room, plenty of headroom in here. I brought the lights down from the old seed starter. I've got 2 of them here mounted on this little rack here. I've got another one down here, another one up here. But to be honest, you really don't need the lights in here. This greenhouse, walk-in hot frame, I'm not exactly sure what to call it. It gets tons of light in the wintertime. Now, the dimensions for this place, it's 69 inches long by 66 inches wide across the beds, and about 8.5 inches tall. I'm 6'3", so I mean 85 inches, that's tons of headroom. The beds, they're 14, the internal dimensions, they're 14 inches wide by about 65 inches long, and they're about 8 inches deep. For additional growing space, we've got this thing rigged up here. These long bed planters, I've got them rigged up into these 3/4 inch bar steel brackets that I drilled out here and over here. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got these, like these where are they? These spacers here, these particular spacers came from old televisions. These are the ones that usually get a whole bunch of spacers depending upon how your televisions are rigged up. And I've just collected them over the years. I had a whole bunch of them left over, so I just put them in here. Temperatures up here in this part of the greenhouse can get up into the 70s and 80s over the winter. That is a 75 watt heat lamp. Most of the heating for this place is controlled through this 1300 watt Best Comfort henhouse heater. I've got that thing rigged up on a 1500 watt thermostat set at 61 degrees. The temperature probe for the thermostat is right here. So I keep this area right about 61 degrees. Now, during the day, a day like this, overcast, about 41 degrees out, it's the heater will come on maybe once every 15 minutes and will hold this place at 61 degrees. If the sun was out at all, it would be 70 in here, no problem at all. Lately, the outside temperatures have been running about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And with no overcast, solid sun, it'll hold the temperature at 65 degrees in here without the heater. My relative humidity, I got a little hygrometer set up, the wireless thermometer. The receiver is in my kitchen, so I can always tell what the temperature is down here. rigged up these PVC shelves that I cut out. Was this just 3-inch PVC? It's just a convenient place to store stuff. And on this side, I even planted some mint. See? And they're drilled out at the bottom, so the excess just drips down. Now, when I set the beds up, let me go over the beds. The beds are made out of untreated lumber. They're 2x10s. And each bed I sprayed the interior of each bed with Flex Seal. I laid the beds out on about on an 1/8 bubble incline going that way, and drilled out the head end over there, and those drains drain into these little, oh, what are these? It's a corrugated PVC material. The perimeter all the way around right here in front. I need to modify these because I've moved the irrigation reservoir to the middle of the greenhouse. I originally had it on that side. I've been toying with the idea of putting a rocket stove in here, and I don't know yet. I'm also building a gray water system, so I've got the gray water plumbing put in. It's fed into this reservoir, and I'll put a filtration system in here, and I've already got the pump and the controller, and I'll be able to pump water through my irrigation lines and then water the beds from the gray water reservoir. I didn't pour any concrete in here. I wanted to keep it that way so I could, play with dropping reservoirs in. Now, I also have these corrugated drains run around the perimeter of the beds. What I did is I glued some isinglass to the sill of the thermal panes, and that isinglass feeds into the drains so that the condensate runs down the isinglass and right into the drains. I've got celery plants. These are Walmart celery plants. Now, when you buy a bunch of celery and use it down to the basal end, if you plant the basal end, guess what? A new celery plant will grow. Cilantro, mint, let's see, parsley, sage, rosemary, and oregano. Okay, this is rosemary, oregano, parsley, more mint, and basil. Also got mint started on this side. This is pretty much the reason why I planted so much mint. This is red vein sorrel. Originally, this red vein sorrel was all over this area. But then a critter got in here at the beginning of the winter and decimated my red vein sorrel. Also decimated this kale plant, which is only now starting to leaf back out. And decimated another celery plant I had down there. And decimated this parsley plant. This was much bigger when I first planted it. Well, so why so much mint? Well, I heard that critters don't like the smell of mint or the smell of onions. Now, I haven't had a chance to plant onions in here yet, or garlic. I haven't had a chance to plant that too. That's something to plant. And so I just planted mint. Now, I know mint takes over gardens, but this is really a controlled environment, so I can control the mint. So the whole goal of the mint is to keep the critter out so I can get my sorrel back and keep planting vegetables. In the summertime, temperatures up here get well into the hundreds, so I have a dryer vent, plugs into that and runs all summer long, blows it out. I'm contemplating rebuilding this place in such a way that maybe this panel will be hinged, and I'll put my hydraulic temperature controlled ram so I can open it up and better vent this area during the summer. I'm also toying with an idea of putting in a geothermal system. Dig down about 5 feet out there in front of the greenhouse, lay in some air ducting, have it feed in here. down about 5 feet. Ground temperature is pretty even, say about 50 degrees. And 50 degrees doesn't sound like a lot for a greenhouse, but if I can use that as a base temperature, then the hen house heater, 1300 watt hen house heater, won't have to work as hard. That window is a storm window, and that's just sealed into place. All of the spaces between that storm window and the wainscoting, all of that is insulated. So there's about 4 inches of insulation on that wall. Below this, under here, that's all insulated in there. So there's about 6 inches of insulation behind this. Blown in foam insulation along the edges, seal it up. What happened? I covered. This is that garden cart I was telling you about. I think that'll do it. Thank you.